Well, Dr. Barry, they call me Dr. Barry, they call me Barry Kerzin. I have many names. I also have a Tibetan name, which is my monastic name, given to me by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who ordained me as a fully ordained Buddhist monk. And that name is Tenzin Churap. Tenzin Churap. Churap. And it means, Tenzin means holder, and Chu is the Dharma, and Rap means exalted. So the name, and it's only a name, nothing more than a name, but the name means holder of the exalted Dharma. And this was a precious name given to me upon my full ordination as a bhikshu, or as a gelung in Tibetan, by the Dalai Lama. And that was about a little over 18 years ago, I think. Yeah, that I became a bhikshu, a fully ordained Buddhist monk. And as you know, I'm also a medical doctor, so that's why it's a little confusing what to call me. There's all different titles and names, and they're used in different contexts. But they're only names, they only designate, they only point. They really have no more meaning than that. Now, in the last lecture, in this last lecture, number 6, in the BSTC 6056 course on relevance of Buddhism in modern life, in this last and 6th lecture on Buddhism and psychology, part 2, we'll dive a little deeper into emotions and attitudes. You know, we've been going over this before several times, and some of you may say, well, it's a little boring, you know, I've heard this before. Well, the point is, again, to go over it again and again until it really becomes part of your life, part of your experience. So until then, please don't call it boring. Previously, we examined the mind in general, and now we'll explore the mind in a little more of its particularity. That is, we'll look at particular minds. We'll concentrate on recognizing negative minds through practicing mindfulness and how to transform them. We'll spend a little more time. We've done it before, we'll do it a little bit more again, on how to transform them. Once we recognize the harmful negative minds, what do we do about it? So we'll talk more about the transformation methods. Some we've presented before, we'll be going over them again just to deepen your understanding, and particularly to, you know, carve them a little deeper into your memory so you don't forget them. And then we'll conclude with a fuller discussion and practice of meditation, mind, compassion mind, and I've also added one on shamatha, or concentration mind, which is like mindfulness mind with a small m, concentration mind. So we'll do three meditations. We'll do one on shamatha, concentration. We'll do one on compassion, and we'll do one on the mind itself, these qualities of awareness and clarity, similar to what we've done before. Again, you don't just meditate once and then you got it. It's a way of living. It's a way of life to integrate meditation into your daily life. You know, if you go days or weeks in between, you know, you lose all that momentum. It's gone. And it's like starting new again, starting as a beginner again. So you want to do it regularly to try to gain some spiritual momentum, daily meditation, even for a short period of time. I recommend, if you know, you can start with 5 minutes if you want. But I also recommend not to watch your, you know, set a timer or watch your clock, because that becomes a real distraction. How long have I been meditating? Oh, how many more minutes do I have? You know, and you can get into that loop a lot, which is obviously a distraction away from your meditation. So you don't need, and it's best not to set the time. So approximately 5 minutes. You can go longer, of course. I do say that try not to push. If you go too long and you find yourself exhausted at the end, you won't do it again. You know, you'll stop. You'll find something else to fill your time. So it's good to have, you know, be somewhat comfortable at the end of your meditation, not to push too much and go too long. So it's good to start often with, short meditations, make them good, make them, worthwhile, make them meaningful. Um, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, you decide whatever is comfortable for you. And then as you get familiar with the meditation you're doing daily, you can start to slowly extend the time if it feels comfortable. Again, not to push it too long and to become exhausted. So when we meet someone, uh, we often say, at least kind of in the West, and I think Hong Kong is similar in this from my experience, how are you? And we say, I'm good. Not very good English, it should be I'm fine, but we say, I'm good. I mean, I say, I'm good, right? And we smile usually when we say that. Not everyone, but often we smile. And yet, is that what we're feeling? Good or fine? Probably not. Much of the time, particularly during this pandemic, terrible, difficult time we're facing during this COVID pandemic in 2020 and 21, people are suffering a lot. All of us are suffering a lot. So even though we may smile and say, I'm good, in response to the other person saying, hi, how are you? Or I'm fine, and smile. Actually, what we might be feeling is confused or betrayed, even feeling useless or broken. We may be feeling never good enough. We may be feeling, I'm really fragile, I'm anxious, I'm falling apart, and you don't even notice. Or I may be feeling pathetic, annoyed, rejected, lonely, defeated. And yet, when someone says, how are you? I'm good, with a smile. So we have to read between the lines. We may feel like we're falling apart. We may not actually yell and scream like this. We may, but we also may not. But inside, we feel like we're cracking. We're kind of breaking. We're falling apart. This is more and more common, particularly during this COVID pandemic. The loneliest moment in someone's life is when they are watching their whole world fall apart, and all they can do is stare blankly. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Stare blankly, watching their whole world fall apart. Some of you may be feeling this way. These kind of feelings are on the rise with all the stress of modern life, and then exponentially on the rise with this COVID pandemic, all the difficulties that are being brought physically, emotionally, spiritually, loneliness, frustration, depression, suicide rates are going up dramatically. Every 40 seconds, someone in the world dies by suicide. And every 41 seconds, someone is left to make sense of what happened. Loved ones, family members, friends, colleagues, neighbors. Suicide doesn't take away the pain. It just shifts it to someone else. It shifts it to our next life. Due to the stigma associated with depression, many professionals do not talk about the physical and emotional toll, particularly during this COVID pandemic when so many healthcare professionals and other professionals on the front line, teachers and others, are being asked to do things that are, beyond their capacity, almost beyond human, stretching beyond the limits. People are breaking. People are having much more depression. Suicide rates are escalating. People are much more depressed and lonely and not feeling well at all. So we need to create safe spaces to open up the conversation. If we keep this to ourselves, it creates more difficulty, more pain, and it can often lead to self-harm. So creating safe places, they don't have to be physical places. They can be obviously, digital places that are safe, that are secure, and that feel safe for people to begin to open up and to talk about some of this pain is crucial. According to the National Academy of Sciences in the US, and this is pre-COVID, maybe a couple years ago, there are about 400 physicians in the US who commit suicide annually. That means that every day, or one or even more, physicians kill her or himself. And that number is now increased during COVID time. So it may be 2 every day. Physicians kill themselves. Nurses, we don't have as good a data, but the impression is proportionally, the same. Now, there are more nurses than doctors, so the numbers would be greater, but proportionally the same in terms of suicide rate among nurses. So suicide is 100% preventable. I don't really believe it's 100% preventable, but I think it's darn close. Maybe 90% or something preventable. So it's very important that we speak up and that we reach out. If you feel that you are in trouble, reach out to someone you are close to and ask for help. This is essential. This is essential. If you feel, or you feel someone in your community, fellow students, someone in your workplace, in your family, in your neighborhood, in your community, if you feel or that someone is having suicidal thoughts, then speak to them, reach out, speak up, reach out, get them help. This is extremely important. We must take care of each other. That's so important, I'm going to repeat it again. We must take care of each other. In Buddhism, we often like to repeat things 3 times for emphasis. We must take care of each other. Because if we don't, who will? We don't chew on pencils much anymore. We're not using pencils, we're using the keyboard. But you all can relate to this. Just stress. You want to bite through a pencil. Maybe some of you have done this. I think I may have done it when I was younger. At least bite on a pencil. I'm not sure I went all the way through. But, clench down on a pencil. Stress. The brain under chronic stress changes in negative, harmful ways. The prefrontal cortex, this area now that's under the forehead that we talked about in our second series of Buddhism and neuroscience. That prefrontal cortex, which is so important for our higher levels of cognition, of planning and reasoning and imagination and creativity, a sense of who we are, compassion, that area atrophies, gets smaller under chronic stress. Also, the area in the center of the brain, if we go back from between our eyebrows and go in from kind of the area of the ears, so we end up kind of in the middle of the brain. And there, at that point, is something called the limbic system, as you now know, which is made up of the amygdala and the hippocampus. And these areas are extremely important in memory, in emotional regulation. And what we find with chronic stress is these areas, some of these areas initially get bigger. That is, the amygdala gets a little bigger initially under chronic stress, but then it atrophies. And the hippocampus atrophies. So both of these areas, the hippocampus and the amygdala, eventually atrophy, gets smaller. And therefore they do their job less well. Memory suffers, emotional regulation suffers under chronic stress. These are changes we see in the brain structure. And this was some research that was written up in the Natural Neuroscience Journal in 2012 by Davidson and McEwen. So we have a choice. That glass has liquid in it, has water in it, and it's filling about 50% of the glass. So we have a choice. We can either perceive and feel, experience that glass is half empty, as the gentleman on the left is doing, with a sour look on his face, bent forward, like this. Or we can see that glass is half full, as the gentleman on the right is doing, standing up straight with a smile on his face. So we have a choice to be optimistic or pessimistic. It's in your hands. You can make that choice. Observe your patterns. Some of us tend to be overly optimistic, and everything we interpret to be, from an optimistic perspective, and we get burned sometimes because we're not so realistic. But others tend to be very pessimistic. Often when we're kind of more on the depressed side, feeling sad, not feeling well, our body isn't feeling well, our emotions aren't in the positive sphere so much, then we tend to be sarcastic, cynical, and we tend to be pessimistic and see the glass as half empty. But we have a choice. So observe your reactions and move it towards the healthy, optimistic side. Now, optimism without realism can, as I said, get us burned, get us into trouble. So we often say, there's an expression that is used by the Dalai Lama and by me and many others, is hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So that blends optimism with realism. Now, we often put expectations on ourselves. Sometimes this comes from family. When we're growing up in a Hong Kong family, in a Japanese family, in a Chinese family, many other cultures, American family, British family, there are expectations put on us to be, better, sometimes even to be perfect. So we kind of then own these expectations of perfection that often come from the family, maybe from ourselves also, usually when we're a kid. And we expect ourselves always to be perfect. We can't make a mistake. We can't fail. But life is full of mistakes, full of failures. So when we encounter those, we kind of fall apart. Leads to depression and even burnout. So you can see this goldfish that has high expectations of perfection is not going to make it. It's not going to make the jump into the larger bowl. It's going to fall and probably even die being out of water. So even worse than burnout, it's maybe burnout leading to suicide or something. Now, if we reduce slightly, I say roughly 10, 15%, there's no magical number, but just a little bit, because expectations are healthy. But if we reduce those expectations of perfection just a little bit, then we can meet our goals. We can have a sense of accomplishment and have a sense of well-being. And in this scenario, with a slightly reduced expectations, you can see the goldfish is going to make it successfully with his or her jump into the larger, but not as large bowl. So let's review emotional hygiene again. We've done it a lot. We're going to do it again because this is so important to obtain happiness, deeper inner happiness, that it's worth paying more attention to. So we'll pay particular attention this time towards the methods of transforming anger, jealousy, and pride. Some repeat for you to really internalize it more deeply. So the reason we want to do this is that by transforming anger into patience or tolerance or compassion, jealousy into appreciation, and pride into humility, will automatically enhance our compassion. We'll have less of this self-preoccupation, which is what we do when we're in an anger mode or a jealousy mode or a pride, arrogance mode. We're me focused. So by reducing those, we automatically lower that me perspective and open it up to other perspective for the concern of the well-being of others. And hence we enhance our compassion. It's like a teeter-totter, it's like a seesaw. As one side goes down, the other side automatically goes up. So as we reduce our anger, jealousy, pride, automatically our compassion goes up. As we reduce our self-focus, automatically focus on others in a positive way, concern for their well-being increases, enhances. So I've listed here 5 negativities or harmful emotions or attitudes, and they're 5 positive, healthy antidotes or opposites. And we've been through this before. I don't have to read them to you. I think you know this. If you don't, please memorize these and know it. Not for sake of an exam, but for sake of your own, humanity, your own sanity, your own, emotional well-being and happiness. That's what this is all for. And then sharing it with others. That's a type of compassion to help others reduce their harmful attitudes and emotions and be happier. I mean, that's what it's all about. Okay. So let's look at, I have a few pictures for you. Some of them are new. So anger, we may not be expressing like this, fully screaming, but we may feel that way. Or here's the icon. I love this, really upset. And jealousy, presumably he's looking at a message from somebody else and she's not happy. She's jealous. And here she is thinking that he's doing the same and looking over his shoulder, kind of spying on him with a jealous look on her face, with that eyebrow sort of raised, like, what text is he reading from whom? Who is she? With a jealous look on her face. And kind of a nice little drawing of, on your left side, she, kind of a she is sort of looking over maybe to another she or another he. And on the right, he, not so happy. Look at that mouth, going like this. And the eyebrows with the furrowed brows, So another kind of drawing or graphic for jealousy. Picture, as we say, sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. There it is. Picture is sometimes worth 1,000 words. Boy, that jealousy, you could cut it with a knife. It's so thick. And this you've seen before. We've found a little color edition of this. They've colored it a little bit. The original was black and white. It's from Our Gang Comedy. It's an old series on American television, produced, I believe, in the 1940s and 1950s. And they had reruns going for many, many years and decades. And when I was a kid, I remember seeing some of these reruns, and it was a great show. These kids were very natural and all very naughty and, wild a little bit, running around and teasing and sometimes hitting other kids and sometimes playing nicely and, kind of real kids. So they called it Our Gang Comedy. And here you can see the little girl on the right. Boy, is she upset and jealous. She's ready to smack the kid, the boy in the middle who's kissing the girl on the other side. And that's the face of jealousy, the girl on the right. And there's another jealousy. She's got something better than me. Look at her little plant. It's much bigger than mine. Mine's tiny, you know. So she's jealous. Um, I have another picture that I can't show you because it's not politically correct, but it's of Jane Mansfield in a low-cut dress and Sophia Loren in a low-cut dress. And Sophia Loren is doing the same thing as this girl, this woman on the left is looking down at the woman on your right, who's got the bigger plant. But in that other picture, it's about breasts. Right? Yeah, shouldn't even talk about it. It's not politically correct, but it is a source of jealousy. How our body looks. We often get jealous of other people because of that. It's not just women; it's men too, of course.
You got that breath.
And comparison, which is similar to jealousy. We're comparing ourselves to others so often. Oh wow, I'm not as good as she is. Look at, incredible how she's dressed. I don't have clothes like that. Even if I did, I couldn't wear them the way she's wearing them. We're comparing ourselves with others, or someone, says something that's kind of brilliant. Wow, are they smart? I'm so stupid. I could never think of that. Or the opposite, they're so stupid. Boy, I could think of something much better than that. Comparison. Negative judgment. We do that all the time. It's usually under the radar. We don't notice it, but it affects us. It closes us. It constricts us. It takes the smile away from our face, We don't feel as well. So it's imperative that we begin to recognize this negative judgment, these negative comparisons that we make all the time. Because when we recognize them, then we can work with getting rid of them, not suppressing them, but working to overturn them, to transform them into their positive opposites, which would be appreciation. Arrogance. So this is Leo Tolstoy. An arrogant person considers herself or himself perfect. This is the chief harm of arrogance. It interferes with a person's main task in life, becoming a better person. Strong words. So with our mindfulness, looking inside in what's happening in our inner life in the present moment, and if we find that we're, feeling better than others, and we feel we know more than everybody else, and practicing arrogance, notice it and get stuff out of there, quickly. Remember humility. Remember the loneliness, like a prison, losing your friends if you continue to practice arrogance. Arrogance is a camouflage, as you know now, for insecurity. Inside, we're doubting ourselves. We don't feel good about ourselves. And what do we do to compensate? We put on this act, this show of being arrogant. We're better than others, We're stronger than others. We're more handsome or beautiful than others. We're smarter than others. All these, putting on a show to try to compensate for that inner insecurity of feeling we're actually lesser on all of these qualities and characteristics. So recognizing our inner life, and particularly when we recognize these harmful negative emotions, to then work with them, to have the courage to say, okay, I'm going to work with it. I'm not just going to let it go like I usually do. Well, that's incredibly important. What I'd like to do now is talk a little bit more about some of the methods. These will be review. I may say them a little differently, but this will be review for you. So as you all know by now, anger is something that we cannot work with when we're fully blown angry. And when we're fully, in a full anger mode. We can't work with it. We're too overwhelmed by it. So that behooves us, that requires us to recognize anger at its early stages. So what are the early stages of anger? I think you know by now, so I'm going to pause for just a few moments and let you remember and think about, what are your early signs of anger?
Sorry.
Yes, I think you know. Irritability, frustration, maybe sleep deprivation. You didn't get enough sleep last night or several nights running. The heart's kind of going fast for no reason, breathing fast for no reason, maybe sweating or, feeling flushed for no good reason. Maybe being in a situation or being with a particular person or having a particular topic, like politics in America, um, that sets you off. So recognize these early signs of anger by practicing mindfulness. Here it's mindfulness with a capital M. It's learning, training yourself to, in the present moment, to be in the present moment and observe your inner life. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Okay. So practice doing that again and again and again, and you'll start getting good at it. It'll start to become familiar. Now, sometimes I have people tell me, "Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what you mean." Well, just try it. Keep trying it because it's simple. It's not difficult. Just keep trying it, and then it'll kind of dawn on you. You have to be in the present moment. How do you get into the present moment? You have to kind of drop that clinging, that grasping to the past or the future. So if you find yourself tightly weaving a story, about the past or the future, you got to let go of that, just bring yourself back into the present moment. It requires relaxing. If you're too tightly wound, it's more difficult to come into the present moment. So relax. Take a few deep, breaths slowly. That'll help relax you. Get up from your work for a minute or two. If you can, some fresh air, open a window or safely go outside. Um, relax yourself. Okay. If you're drinking too much coffee or, strong tea, too much of it, that's going to not relax you. It'll do the opposite, all that stuff. So try to relax yourself and then try to, recognize the present moment and then just observe your inner life. Oh, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? So do it right now, please. Be mindful with a capital M. Look into your inner life. Ask yourself, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What are the sensations in my body?
Say, you did all. We can stop.
Good. Often it doesn't take much time. It can even take less time than we just took right there. But I wanted you to practice a little bit. It may just be a quick glance and you recognize something or you don't. That's out of whack, that's out of balance, it's harmful or negative attitude or emotion. Okay, so once we've, begin to train in this mindfulness, looking inside in the present moment to our inner life of emotions and attitudes, and then when we recognize, let's say we notice we're a bit irritable, maybe we're shaking or feeling like we're shaking a little bit, or we have tension in our muscles in the neck or somewhere in the body. Then we say to ourselves, I might be getting angry. Okay. So then we apply this method, and the method of transforming it into a cloud way over there in the sky, these pre-anger signs and symptoms, and then it just drifts across the sky and completely dissolves with your pre-anger. Another one, we use we imagine that the pre-anger stuff becomes a crystal ball. We drop it on a stone floor and it shatters into many, many pieces along with our pre-anger. And the third one that I've mentioned to you before briefly and want to talk a little bit more about is understanding. So if I look inside, if I'm mindful and I notice, gosh, I'm feeling a little tension in my body. Yeah, I feel irritable. I feel a little frustrated. I don't feel real relaxed there. I tell myself, I may be getting angry. And then if it's with another person, uh, immediately I know the other person's not happy. So I know that other person's not happy. And that's what I tell myself right off the bat. I say, that other person is not happy. Okay. So I'm sort of getting angry at that other person. And right away, when I recognize that pre-anger stuff, about to get angry at that other person, I tell myself, that other person's not happy. How do I know it? Because as I've said before, it takes two of us to practice anger, to provoke each other to get angry. It doesn't happen just from one side. We say it does. We blame the other person. They're the reason, or they're the fault for me getting angry. We blame them. But in fact, they may be doing the same thing towards us. Okay. And so these things are usually, involve both parties when we get angry. So therefore, I know the other person is, to some degree anyway, I'm doing the same thing, but the other person to some degree is provoking me. So the other person's a provocateur, okay, provoking me. So I know right away that other person is not happy. Why? Because he or she is a provocateur. They're practicing, provoking someone else, in this case me. Okay. So I know that people that provoke, they're not happy. Because when you're happy, you don't provoke others. That's only when you're off. You're feeling upset, angry, or jealous, or some negative, harmful emotion, right? You're feeling revenge, or not when you're happy. So I know the other person's not happy, and that's an important recognition to recognize, because from there we can develop understanding. Because if we know that they're not happy because they're provoking, because anger requires two to participate to, get angry. Then we know that they're provoking. We know, therefore, they're not happy. And then we try to think, and this is usually kind of on a more imagination level. I mean, I don't know what they're going through, why they're not feeling happy, but I can imagine what are the, most important things. So you just think from your own life, what is it that gets you upset? So relationship issues are high up there. Something was misinterpreted or said that they'd like to take back and say it differently next time. It may be that, we had some bad words and now we're trying to, wish we could sort of, do that again. Maybe that's where that person is at this time. Or maybe they have some health issues. Maybe they have had some pain in their chest and it's not going away, and they've had it for the last few days or weeks, and they're getting worried about it. Do I have a heart problem? They're thinking about maybe going to the doctor. Or maybe, economic issues. I wish I could, do this, that, or the other, but it takes money and I just don't have it. Or obviously job insecurity, particularly during the time of this pandemic, or loss of a job, and how am I going to make ends meet for my family? How am I going to put food on the table for my family? So, or other emotional ups and downs. During this pandemic, this COVID, we spend a lot of time kind of going up, going down, up and down, or staying down. It's just a difficult time for us. So maybe the other person's just been hurting because of COVID. They're worried, they're frightened, they're scared, about what's happening. And so they just have a short fuse. So all the things that may get you down to be feeling unhappy, remember those and kind of imagine that maybe, and go through them a little bit, because you don't know what it is. Or, through your imagination, that she or he may be, suffering because of this, or that, And then just by doing that, going through that process, it won't take you long. Usually takes me much less than a minute. What happened to that early anger? It kind of was hung out to dry, we say, or it sort of, what do we say? It dried on the vine. Yeah, it never really ripened into fruit. because it had nowhere to go. Anger requires a spotlight, it needs to be front and center. It needs to have the attention. And if we don't pay it the attention, notice we're not suppressing it. We're not actively pushing it down. We're just kind of ignoring it here, So we're not giving it the limelight, the attention that it requires. And as a result, it just withers. It just kind of goes away. Now, this won't happen the first time. You know this because our anger is so deeply ingrained. But if you practice this way again and again and again, slowly, it will help reduce your anger. That's been my experience and many people's experience, that if you stay with these methods and don't give up, that they'll start to work, such that the intensity of your anger will start to reduce. You won't get as angry, as hot, as red in the face or whatever. And then the duration will start to, reduce, won't last as long. And then the interval between will lengthen. Excuse me, you'll get angry less often. My throat's getting a little dry there. I had to take a little liquid, a little tea. Good. So positive emotions, they're grounded in honesty and integrity. That's kind of our telltale. When you sail, you have the mast and this, the main sail comes back from that. And you may have a smaller sail aft in the front. And on that mast, usually near the top, you have a little small piece of cloth or string, and that's called the telltale. And that tells you the direction of the wind. So the direction that's pointing is the direction that the wind is going. And so using that as an analogy, a telltale, to inform you, the direction of the wind, honesty and integrity become the telltale for our emotions. When they're present, then we have positive, helpful, emotions that, create a harmonious, peaceful, happy environment for us. Whereas if our telltale is absent, if we are not having honesty and integrity, then our emotions are going to be negative and harmful. And those are the ones that get us into trouble and rob us of our peace. So honesty and integrity are really in Tibetan we say the sok shing. It's kind of, if you have a big tent and you have a pole that keeps it up, that's the sok shing. And we can talk about that in life also. What are the real important things that keep our vitality, keep us alive, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It's honesty, integrity are some of the main ingredients there. So honesty and integrity, they lead to respect. When honesty and integrity are present, then we kind of open the doors for respect, mutual respect. And when we have respect, particularly mutual respect, that opens the doors for trust. We feel safe. We know we feel confident the other person is honest, has integrity, and on that basis we can respect the other person, and we are receiving respect back from the other person also. So both ways, respect. And based on all of that, we naturally develop trust. And that trust then connects us. It develops a close, genuine, safe, reliable friendship. So we must walk the talk and practice integrity and honesty that lead to respect and trust. This is very important for a healthy, happy life, for good, wholesome relationships. So this boy and this dog, they have trust. They are close. They have a good friendship based on trust. So this boy The dog is being very trusting. The dog is obviously bigger than the boy, weighs probably double or triple. And yet the boy is with a loving, trusting, good friendship attitude, feeling, is kind of touching the dog's face, touching the dog's nose. The boy could probably even put his fingers gently into the dog's nose, and the dog wouldn't mind. Why? Because they're good friends. They trust each other. Very important. Very important. With that, I'd like to take our first break. So let's take a break, and I'm looking at my watch. You do the same. Let's come back in 10 minutes, and we'll continue where we left off with integrity and honesty, leading to respect and to trust and genuine friendship and relationship. See you in 10 minutes. Welcome back from your break. Let's continue and go to the slides. And we'll look at this wonderful, genuine friendship. Again, based on trust, based on integrity and honesty. Now let's shift a little bit and look at the mind in terms of mindfulness. And there's good research that informs us that people are distracted 40%, 47% of the time. So that means right now, half of you are not listening to me. The attention span on average is 11 seconds. We can't hold our attention very long. Often it's much less than 11 seconds. If you watch television, things are kind of, cutting. They don't last a second. They're really creating this habit of distraction in our environment, particularly our visual media, digital in the internet, on television, wherever. Things are no longer lasting and calm and peaceful. They're just the opposite. So we become distracted half of the time. I love this drawing. This is from Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh. Pooh is one of my favorite characters as I was growing up. Pooh says to Piglet, Piglet is his best friend, "What day is it?" "It's today," says Piglet. "Oh, that's my favorite day," replies Pooh, suggesting mindfulness, presence, being in the present moment. When I was a kid, I never thought that, Pooh Bear was practicing mindfulness. I had no idea what mindfulness was. But now as an adult and as a Buddhist monk and understanding something from my own experience about mindfulness, I recognize that L.L. Milne, I think, is the author, or E.L. something L. Milne, the author, must have known something about mindfulness and portrayed Pooh Bear as someone that was calm, relaxed, and in the present moment, at least to some degree. So mindfulness, as you know very well by now, is observing our inner life of thoughts and feelings in the present moment, free of negative judgment, and applying those positive antidotes to negative attitudes and emotions. So that is mindfulness with a capital M. You know this very well. Mindfulness with a small m is concentration meditation, which we call shamatha. Now, you probably know this also intellectually, but how much do you know this experientially? Maybe not so much for many of us. Although some of us have a practice of meditation or are able to come into the present moment at will and concentrate without getting distracted. Maybe we've been trained through meditation. Maybe we've been trained through doing visual arts like painting. Maybe we've been trained to do this through practicing music. There are many doors to concentrating the mind, but to keep it concentrated at will without the use of some other thing like music or art or dance, meditation is a very good avenue, a very good method to train our minds to become less distracted, more concentrated. So I'd like to review with you some of the benefits of mindfulness with a small m, or shamatha, or concentration meditation. In the break, I made some lemon ginger honey, and I put a little bit too much lemon compared to the amount of honey, so it's a bit sour. but it does have ginger, and I think it'll help soothe my throat. So some of the benefits from meditation, this is concentrated shamatha meditation. In Tibetan, we call this shi ne, and shi is place, and ne is ne is place, and shiwa is peaceful. So it literally means to create a peaceful environment, in our mind, or sometimes that's translated literally as calm abiding. So to have our minds abide calmly without being distracted. So that's this kind of meditation. Some of the benefits from it are, number one, as you would expect, focused attention, because we train our minds to become less distracted. In the next break, I'll have to add a little more honey. Our mind becomes calm because there's less distraction, less clutter, less chatter. And because we have more focused attention and a calm mind, we can see more. We have a broader perspective. We can see more. See here, I don't mean in terms of our eyes, but experientially. We have access to more. We have a broader perspective. And because of a focused attention, calm of mind, and having a broader perspective, our learning is enhanced. So many students have recognized this, and they have brought meditation into their life, particularly before exams, because they've read about some of the research demonstrating a better exam performance after meditation. And because of all these things of focused attention and the calm mind, our learning is improved, our perspective is broadened, we actually make better decisions. So that's why this meditation, this mindfulness practice has entered now the business world. Top corporate executives, middle-level managers, people that have to make a lot of decisions and have to make good decisions are often turning to mindfulness to help enhance that ability to make better decisions. People in the world of athletics, professional, as well as collegiate and high school and individual athletics, people are doing mindfulness practices to enhance their ability to perform better
Isn't that a
in
performance?
athletics. So this is happening also in education. So many schools and school systems are turning to, mindfulness and to positive mental states training, emotional hygiene training, to improve, education and improve the students' happiness in their life. This is also something very important. And also benefits from mindfulness practice are health, better health. That's both on the physical level as well as on the emotional level, well-being. And in terms of the physical health improvement, our immune system is strengthened. There are many research studies that have been, published in the best journals that conclude better immune systems, stronger immune systems with practice of mindfulness. Now, this research is often not the very best level, the highest level, which are randomized controlled trials. And the reason is these take a lot of money to perform. You have to have a lot of participants, and you need many investigators to analyze the data. You need statisticians, etc. So they're expensive types of research. And so often these kind of research come out of the, for particular drugs, medications in the field of medicine, because the drug companies have those resources to do and to fund that kind of research. Also, if a researcher, particularly at a university, is able to get good grant money from NIH in America or other, health agencies that have a lot of money to, although less is coming from NIH these years, but have money to to support larger research projects, then they can do randomized control studies. But often the on mindfulness, the research that's done doesn't have this kind of resource, and the researchers don't have these kind of resources, and therefore they're not the best level. But still, you have good level research being done, and it's being done many times from different groups. So that also adds to its reliability. So enhanced immune system, also the heart and the circulatory system are enhanced, made more healthy. Hypertension, high blood pressure can be reduced through mindfulness practices. Uh, People, through being mindful and therefore reducing their anger, they can reduce, uh, heart attacks and stroke. Now, that's that research needs more to really make it foolproof, but it looks like that's true with the research that we have. The GI system, in terms of problems with the abdomen, the large intestine, with irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel syndrome, at least symptom-wise, can be improved through mindfulness meditation. Um, Lung conditions related to allergy, particularly asthma, can be improved through mindfulness meditation. So there are a number of benefits to our health. Our genetic system, particularly the epigenetic system, is improved through mindfulness and healthy and positive emotions like compassion. There's some good research that's been done. We need more to confirm it, but it looks like there's a good, at least, correlation there, if not causation, between mindfulness practice and compassion and other healthy, positive mental states, and a healthier epigenetic system. Epigenetics is, epi means on top of or above, or meta, and so it's the area of human genetics that determines which genes are being turned off at any one point in time and which are being turned on. And genes then, when they're turned on, they express the machinery, or they're the blueprint for the machinery that then produces or makes protein. And so we have all kinds of protein. Some of it's very healthy, like proteins that are involved in our humoral immune system, the gamma globulins that circulate in our blood. But there are other proteins, for example, it's called, yeah, I just blocked on the name. I just lost it. Not amygdala. Yeah, it's a name similar to that. These are proteins that can block up and clog our kidneys. Amyloid. Amyloid is a protein that is harmful. It can block our kidneys and block other areas of our body to create disease in our heart, in our kidneys, in our brain. And it's a harmful protein, amyloid. So, and there's a syndrome called amyloidosis, where there's a gross overexpression of amyloid. And this would be then a negative or harmful protein. We have other harmful proteins that occur in the body that cause autoimmune disease and other such things. So the area of epigenetics is regulating, turning on, turning off of the genes to make protein. And meditation has been shown in some early studies, pilot studies, but good quality research, to show that healthy protein can be enhanced through mindfulness meditation. So that's very interesting research. In terms of emotions, well, we've talked a lot about, emotional hygiene. And so how being mindful can help us move towards healthier, happier, more positive emotional states. So we're talking about meditation, but we haven't said what it is. So I'm going to take a drink here for a moment of my hot ginger lemon honey, less honey, unfortunately, drink, while you think about in your own mind and formulate, kind of a definition or at least characteristics.
Oh,
How would you characterize or define
oh dear, I
my
know what.
meditation? So please go ahead and do that while I take a little drink.
Drink. I want to drink a comfort drink too.
So what do you think? What is meditation? So maybe now you have a few ideas floating in your mind. So let's review that. Some characteristics or characteristics of meditation. So number one, it's a training. And what's a training? It's training our mind. So meditation is seen as a training of our mind. But not only any kind of training, because we can train our mind to be negative and harmful. We can train our mind to get angry all the time. We can train our minds to, harm other people through, violent means or through verbal means or harsh verbal speech or whatever. We can train our mind towards negative. So it's training our minds in a happy and healthy way. Secondly, it's cultivating stability and clarity like a bright laser. So what is stability and what is clarity? Stability means the opposite of distraction. When our minds are stable, they're non-distracted. When our minds are clear, they're bright and vivid and alive, like a bright laser. Okay? So those are qualities, those last two, number two, are qualities that we cultivate when we practice this shamatha, or concentration meditation. We can also train the mind, and we do train the mind, to be more familiar with or be more in the present moment. And so that's another aspect of what meditation does, particularly shamatha meditation. And then investigating reality, particularly the question, who are we? On a deeper level, who are we? And that's a question that we can ask and often do ask in analytic meditation on emptiness. Who are we? Are we the me, the Barry who appears or not? And that question is often one that we do in analytical meditation on emptiness. So as I've kind of alluded to now, there are two basic types of meditation. Number one is concentration or shamatha. And then we have a number of different objects that we can use to develop or cultivate shamatha or concentration meditation. It can be the breath, and that's a meditation we're going to do in just a little while. And we can focus the breath at this point at the base of the nose as the air is passing in and out. We can also focus on the abdomen as it rises and falls with our breathing, with abdominal breathing. Secondly, we can focus mentally on a mental image of the Buddha. It might be an image of the Buddha we're used to, which has been we see in many statues or many paintings. It could be an image of the Buddha that's in the Tantric Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism, which would be a Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara, the compassionate aspect of the Buddha in Tantrayana or Vajrayana or Tantric practice. It could be Vajrapani, the power aspect of the Buddha, kind of a wrathful form of the Buddha in Tantra called Vajrapani, holding a Vajra and representing the power aspect of the Buddha, qualities of the Buddha. Or it could be the wisdom aspect of the Buddha. It could be Manjushri, who is depicted in its peaceful form in a as a 16-year-old young boy, adolescent boy, holding up above its head a sword, a two-edged sword, and often flames are coming from that sword, representing the wisdom. And so the two edges of the sword are cutting through ignorance, thereby producing or creating or giving rise to the Buddhist wisdom, which is represented by the flames that are coming from the sword. So that's Manjushri. So those could all be mental images we could choose when we're doing concentration meditation. And it could be, the Buddha in a non-tantric form, sitting with the legs in the full lotus position and with the right hand on the knee and the fingertips touching the ground, kind of confirming, the state of enlightenment. And it's said when the Buddha became enlightened, that under the tree in Bodh Gaya in India, northern India, that the earth shook 3 times. And that was the earth giving confirmation to the Buddhas having become enlightened. And so to remember that, or to kind of symbolize that, the Buddha is touching the fingers are touching the earth, touching that confirmation from Mother Earth to his enlightenment. Actually, it's neither his nor her, because the Buddha has no gender, is beyond, human qualities. Could be another inspiration. If we're not Buddhist, if we're Christian, it might be Jesus Christ. It might be an image of, or a, not an image, but some kind of, letter or name referring to Muhammad, if we're Islamic. Or, it could be Albert Einstein, if that's one of our heroes. He certainly is my hero, and was when I was a kid. I had a cutout, a kind of cardboard small cutout. It's only about that tall, maybe 6 to 8 inches. And it was cut out, so it had a little thing that went off the back so you could stand it up, it didn't fall down. And it was Albert Einstein riding a bike, smoking his kind of corn cob pipe. And in the background was the advanced studies that looks kind of like an observatory at Princeton University, where Einstein fled to during the Second World War to avoid the imprisonment or the putting in a concentration camp by the Nazis, and came to America and was given a post at Princeton University, which subsequently became the advanced studies part of Princeton University. So my cutout of Albert Einstein is sitting on a bicycle with a corn cob pipe in his mouth in front of that observatory at the advanced studies at Princeton University. So that could be used as a mental image, that image of Albert Einstein, or the mind itself, and looking at or focusing on awareness itself could be an object for shamatha meditation. Now, for the mind meditation, it's a little different because we're not actually focusing down on one thing. We're focused on awareness, which is broad. So we're not getting focused on any particular thing, but allowing the mind to be wide open. And we'll do that meditation also pretty soon. Now, this is a tanka, a painting, illustrating the 9 stages that our minds go through as we train and practice and become capable, become proficient in passing through these different mental stages on the way to obtaining or achieving the full state of shamatha. Some nice fresh ginger in that drink. So let's review these 9 stages of the mind as we train in shamatha, or concentration meditation. Now, it's important to have patience
I guess his string is very
We don't
flat.
achieve these states very quickly. In fact, they can take a long time. So please don't be overly impatient. The first stage, represented by the gray elephant on the bottom, is when our mind is mostly distracted. Let's say we're focusing on the breath at this point. We're observing the sensation as the breath passes in and out. We're observing it at that point. And most of the time, our mind is not there. Our mind is somewhere else, on chocolate cake, or going out and doing something, or meeting somebody, or focusing on a sound or a thought. And that's the first stage where many of us are right now. With practice, daily practice of practicing shamatha, often we do it focusing on the breath right at this place, at the base of the nose. We can begin to improve our concentration and come to the second place, where you see there's an elephant and the monkey the elephant is gray, the monkey is red, but there's a slight patch of white representing a little bit of concentration. So in the second stage, we're 50-50. Half of the time our mind is distracted off the object, and half of the time our mind is focused right there, the base of the nose, on the breath as it's passing, going in and out at that point. And that's not easy to achieve. It often takes some practice. It may take some weeks, months, or even longer. And then with more regular meditation, we can attain the third stage, which is that third painting of the elephant in gray, now having more than a patch. The head and trunk are white. It's similar with the monkey, more than just a patch on the top of the head. The whole head is white, symbolizing that we are now more concentrated. Our mind is, able to concentrate more now, such that we're more of the time focused on our object, in this case, the breath at the base of the nose, and less of the time distracted. And that's quite an achievement, not easy to achieve. But it takes regular meditation to be done pretty much on a daily basis. If we do it just here and there occasionally, we'll lose the momentum, and we won't gain that kind of momentum to develop more concentration qualities for our mind. And then with more meditation, we reach the fourth stage, and you can see there the front half of the elephant is white and the top half of the monkey is white, symbolizing concentration. So and this is the fourth stage. At the fourth stage, we're able to concentrate on our chosen object, in this case, the breath at the base of the nose, all of the time. Okay, we're always concentrated on the breath passing at the base of the nose, but we're multitasking. Some of the time the mind is distracted, so we're doing both. The mind is maintaining its focus here at on the breath passing at the base of the nose, but at the same time, some of the times our mind is distracted on something else. So we're kind of multitasking. When we get to the fifth stage, where now more than half of the elephant is white and more than half of the monkey is white, and also we have now a rabbit entering, this picture, more than the half of the body is white, representing now that we are fully concentrated without getting distracted, without multitasking, part of the mind getting distracted. The mind is fully on our object by the fifth stage without any distraction at all. That's a very advanced practice, not easy to achieve, but with regular practice, it is definitely possible. With more daily meditation And often we have to do this intensely, where we don't spend 5 or 10 minutes a day, but probably several hours a day. But doing short sessions of 10 or 15-minute sessions, this is usually the best way to do it. We can then attain even more concentration or more on our road to shamatha, to the 6th level, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where the elephant, you can see even more of the body is white, and the same with the monkey. And on this 6th stage, we're starting to train in clarity, mental clarity. So you remember in the previous slides, when I talked about qualities of meditation, number 2 was stability and clarity. So now we've achieved stability, where our minds are on the object fully, completely, all the time. Now we're beginning to train in developing clarity of the mind. So at the first stages of clarity, the mind will be a little bit clear, but not very clear. And then as we get up to the 7th stage, the elephant is nearly all white, as the monkey is nearly all white, signifying that we've now cultivated a more subtle level of clarity, where the mind is completely vivid. It's kind of shining. And then with more regular meditation on a daily basis, intensely, we can reach the 8th stage, where the elephant now is completely white. Okay. And it means that we've achieved both stability and clarity. But on the 8th stage, it requires effort. If we start to drift away from our stability or drift away from our clarity, we need to apply antidotes. So we still need to have that effort of observing what our mind's doing. And if we begin to move in the direction of losing our stability or our clarity, then we have to apply antidotes. And then we get to the 9th stage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, where we have the elephant totally pacified, sitting down. And that at that stage, we no longer require any effort. Automatically, when we sit down to do our meditation, our mind will be 100% stable and 100% clear. Okay? No more effort is required on the 9th stage. And the 9th stage is considered having attained shamatha. Now, there's still more qualities to develop to deepen that shamatha, and those are called pliancies. It's a word that's not often used in English. It means kind of flexibility, and it's flexibility of the mind. So to bring the mind into an even deeper flexible level, it involves the energies in the body. And these energies to be more centralized, to come more into the central channel, allow us to be more mentally flexible or pliant. And that then leads to more physical pliancy. And at that level, we actually attain the ability to fly. And you can see the yogi or yogini here flying, because we've perfected the pliancy, the mental pliancy and the physical pliancy of the subtle elements of the body. In this case, the movement or kinetic or wind energy of the body has been mastered. So we can thereby master the external wind energy and can fly. Other abilities come with this, called the 5 clairvoyances, come with total mastery of shamatha, such as we can see at great distances small objects totally clear, almost like the eye of an eagle. We also can hear at great distances sounds that are not very loud. We can hear them accurately and clearly. The ability to read other people's minds, not only in the present, but in the past. All of these qualities, called the five clairvoyances, naturally come with the attainment of shamatha. Are we a Buddha? Are we completely enlightened? No, in fact, we're nowhere near that. These are very high and advanced attainments, but we still have to cultivate the wisdom and not only intellectually understand it, but directly, experientially understand it correctly. And then upon all of that, we have to practice Tantrayana, where we cultivate the deepest, most
So the man,
subtle or subtlest mind of
so the
luminosity, of
man
clear light. And from that,
is
we
the
can
man.
then develop the subtlest body, which is not a gross physical body like we have, but rather a body of energy, of light, called the illusory body.
Or
And then through more
the
practice using all
energy.
of these abilities, then we are able to bring the mind of clear light and the body, illusory body, into union. And then from that state of union, we are able to attain very quickly full enlightenment of a Buddha. Now, all of this is grounded in universal compassion. So that has to be our motivation at all of these stages as we cultivate enlightenment. So the second type of meditation we call contemplative or analytic meditation. And our object of that analytic or contemplative meditation can be compassion, it can be kindness, it can be change or impermanence, either gross impermanence or moment to moment, subtle impermanence. And of course, it can be the wisdom of emptiness, of shunyata. So these are some of the objects that we often use when we're practicing analytical meditation. So we're thinking about the chosen topic and thinking about it in certain prescribed ways, which we have to learn. And when we get a little aha moment, for example, if we're doing the analytic meditation on emptiness, we may get a little taste of things being empty, that the appearances don't exist. The false appearances don't exist, and that things are in fact empty of intrinsic existence. We may get a little taste of that, and then if we do, we stay with that taste. And when we lose it, we go back to the analysis. So you can see we alternate here the analytic meditation with concentration meditation back and forth. If we're meditating on analytic meditation on compassion, we start to feel it. Then we stop the analysis and we just focus on that feeling of compassion. So we go over to using our concentration meditation. When we lose that feeling of compassion, we come back to the analysis. So again, we alternate back and forth. So this is a class of third graders outside of Seattle, Washington. And they have an incredible principal and amazing teachers that are teaching mindfulness and compassion, kindness, sharing, all the positive, mental qualities and emotions to these kids who are about 8 years old and in third grade. We had 3 classes, over 100 kids together, obviously pre-COVID, large classroom. And you can see these kids are practicing mindfulness, focusing on the base of their nose. One child even has his finger there, and you can see some other children with their hands near their face are probably doing the same thing. You don't need to put your finger there, but it helps them anchor or focus their attention there. This was just an incredible group of children, and we had a wonderful day together. It was very special. You can meditate in a classroom, you can meditate anywhere, and these are 2 other children that are involved in their meditation in a classroom. It's even cool to meditate. You can do it with your dark glasses if you like. So now I'd like to meditate with you. I'd like to do a shamatha meditation with you. So I would like you to please sit up straight in your chair, get your spine straight, and drop your shoulders. So there we're balancing alertness and relaxation. The straight spine is physical alertness, and relaxing your shoulders is relaxation. I'd like your head to be up like this, not down like that. Up, eyes open, glancing down, your mouth closed gently. And I want you to breathe normally. Please don't change your breathing. Don't take big, deep breaths or slow or fast or deep or shallow, just normal breathing. And I want you to focus your attention right here at the base of the nose. And that's all we're going to do. Okay. I want you to put your hands with the left palm up and the right palm on top of it like that, with the two thumbs pointing up, and then just allow that to rest gently in your lap, again, dropping your shoulders. Please have a soft gaze with your vision. You might be looking at a tabletop or your keyboard or whatever it is. Try not to stare at it. That's what I mean by a soft gaze. And we'll do this for about 5 to 10 minutes, and I will keep track of the time. When you get distracted, and most likely you'll get distracted and many times, just recognize your distraction and bring your mind back to focusing your attention right here at the base of the nose. Now, as we do this meditation, if you're aware of the air passing at that point, you're not following in and out, but at that point, if you're aware of the air passing at that point, you can focus on that sensation. If not, just keep your awareness focused at that point between the upper lip and the nose. Good. So please meditate. And when we're finished, I'll request you to please stop meditating. Please meditate.
音もみたい。
Please stop your meditation. It's important not to judge your meditation. What we observe in our meditation is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much happening in our minds, in our bodies, in our energies that we're not aware of. So please avoid the tendency to judge your meditation. And please avoid the tendency to judge yourself. Oh, I'm a terrible meditator. I can't meditate. Or, boy, am I good. I'm the best meditator around. Avoid those tendencies. Or, my meditation was just terrible. I can't meditate at all. Avoid those tendencies, please. Just do your meditation and feel happy that you're doing your meditation, and do it every day. Try to make it a habit, just like brushing your teeth. It will bring better physical and mental health. Now, I would like to take a break with you, and then when we come back, we're going to do a meditation on the mind. Actually, I changed my mind. Because we're in a nice calm state now, having done, or hopefully in a little bit of a calm state now, having done a shamatha meditation on the breath, I'd like to use that energy with you and do a second meditation on the mind. Now, if you would like to stand up and just briefly, shake a little bit or stretch, go ahead, and we'll do that for a minute or two, and then come back quietly, sit down on your chair or your cushion, and we'll do our second meditation. So take just a moment. This is not a break. I don't want you to leave. I want to do the second meditation with you, but I want you just to relax your body just a little bit. So please come back and sit down. Now for this meditation, we'll have a straight spine, shoulders relaxed, head up. Our hands will be on our knees. So this is a little different than the first shamatha meditation. Our hands will be on our knees, and our eyes will again be open, but they'll be looking slightly up like this. And the mouth will be slightly open, not like that, but just slightly like this. Looking up maybe 10 or 15 degrees from the horizon, okay? And what we're going to do is nothing. We're going to do nothing. So we're going to be rather than do. So the analogy here is a glass of water containing dirty water. And what do we do if we want to make this clear, crystal clear water? All we do is we set the water down on a table and leave it alone. We don't do anything. And naturally, gravity will help settle the dirt, leaving crystal clear water. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do nothing. We're just going to rest without falling asleep. We're maintaining alertness. We're just going to totally rest and relax and do nothing. Okay? So our minds will be totally open. We'll be grasping or clinging on nothing. So this is a little bit like, that glue solvent. It's like unsticking all the stuff that's stuck. Okay, so we're going to unstick. All of our senses will be wide open. Our eyes, our ears, our nose, tongue taste, tactile sensation will be wide open. But we won't stick on any of those. We won't follow any of those. So if we hear a sound, it'll just come and we'll let it go. If we see something, we'll just see it and let it go. If we smell or we have a tactile sensation, of our bum or our back or our neck or whatever, we'll feel it and we'll let it go. We won't stay there. We won't stick on it. Okay, so we'll be wide open, blocking nothing, sticking on nothing. Okay, that's what we're going to not do, but be. We're just going to be being, totally relaxing, but being alert, not sleeping. So I'll give you a little bit of guidance through the different points in the meditation. I want you to totally relax. I can't say that enough. We tend to be totally, tightly wound and strung and, we're ready to just go boom, So try to relax all that stuff. Try to just relax as much as you can without falling asleep. And that will help you not stick on anything you see, hear, you feel, or you think, thought. Okay? Good. So let's do it. We'll do it for 5 or 10 minutes. I'll be the timekeeper. Please go ahead and meditate. Stay wide open. Please don't follow anything. Sounds, sights, sensations, thoughts. Just let them pass through. Totally relax. Maintain alertness. If you're getting some saliva in your mouth, you can put the tip of your tongue at the top of your teeth where it joins the palate. Sometimes that will help reduce the saliva. It's not required, it's optional. You don't have to do anything, just be wide open. Please don't stick on any thought, sound, visual image, sensation in your body. Just let them go. Try not to get stuck. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to follow a thought, follow a sound, follow a sensation. Just let it go. Just be wide open. Please stop your meditation. Wonderful. Remember, no judgments about your meditation session, about yourself as the meditator. Please avoid that temptation to judge. Good. So now let's take a 10-minute break, and I'll see you back for the conclusion of this lecture on Buddhism and psychology. And we've gone over in our middle section over an hour, so we'll have a little less than an hour, maybe a half an hour or so, or a little more when we come back. So please have a look at your watch as I'm doing, and let's come back in 10 minutes.
Go to gym. At gym. Go to definitely the first taker.
I've added gym to your shopping list.
Gym to your shopping list. Alright. I will not cut it because if I want to cut it, at least I can cut it. Then uploading the video. But I just want to make the video one into one. Try not to spill. No, I would like to buy some chips, vegetables, and I'm not in second. Do it to my friend. I guess maybe. Good things. します。港幣對人民幣。
好，我係 Chrissy 啊，今次係我第一次拍 YouTube，所以如果有啲咩做得唔去找換店或者關口嘅一啲嘅人民幣而家唔同，咁有時就可能會出現搶唔到人民幣啊，或者使多咗嘅情況。咁如果遇到呢啲情況咧，就可以上呢一個網站 www.hkrnb.com， 用香港嘅轉數快充值大陸嘅微信人民幣錢包嘅。咁一個嘅好處咧，就係你可以24小時隨時都可以充值啦，你唔需要等到找換店啊或者銀行啊，佢哋好早關門呢一個情況出現。咁由於微信轉帳咧，一定要好友先可以轉到帳嘅，所以一定要先加微信好友，然之後再睇清楚當日嘅匯率，之後再用轉數快將港幣轉過去。咁暫時呢一個概念咧，仲係喺測試階段啦，所以只能夠人工操作。如果唔係辦公時間咧，請先確認咗客服在線，然之後先至好轉帳。如果有啲咩問題咧，歡迎致電或者微信 WhatsApp 69006882。多謝。
咁我就紅啤啤添啊！
Wait a minute. わかりました。ちょっと待って。HKRNB.com. So how can I take it? 自分にする。I don't. No, it's WeChat B. It's WeChat D.
Welcome back from your break.
Okay.
Let's now complete this lecture on Buddhism and psychology. I think you can begin to appreciate the different approaches between Buddhist psychology and modern psychology. Modern psychology tends to focus on pathology, on people being sick mentally. on depression, on schizophrenia, on all kinds of mental disorders, with the goal of trying to bring them back to quote unquote normal. Whereas Buddhist approach to the mind and psychology actually works at trying to help people thrive, to flourish, and in fact to become fully enlightened beings. So you can see the emphasis is different, but there's a change in modern psychology because many modern psychologists have begun to delve into Buddhism. Some have even become Buddhists, but many have meditated in the Buddhist fashion. Many have studied about emotional hygiene and the mind, and many have studied even about wisdom and the Buddhist understanding of compassion and the difference between empathy and compassion, and have adopted many of these methods in their practice, in their clinical psychology practice. So for example, one common journal for lay people and professionals both is called Psychology Today, coming out of America. And if you look at that, if that journal, you know, most of the articles are having something to do with Buddhist psychology of the mind. And so now modern psychology is adopting many of the methods used for the last 2,600 years in Buddhist understanding of the mind and psychology. There's a rich dialogue that's taking place between both traditions, and Buddhism, particularly understanding the mind, is learning a lot from modern psychologists and psychology also. So it's kind of a give and take. I think most of the direction is from Buddhism to modern psychology, but I think it goes in both directions also. Good. So let's return to our slides, and we will finish our lecture. So let's move a little bit to compassion and talk a little bit about that aspect of the mind, positive emotion or attitude. We don't really call it emotion in English from our conceptual framework. Partly it's emotion, but partly it's cognitive, or partly it's an attitude. So we can talk about it as a state of mind. And compassion and humility go hand in hand. So how does that work? Well, what's humility? Humility is when we reduce our ego, so we're not so arrogant. Right? We're practicing humility. And when we do that, we naturally have less ego investment. We have less ego. We spend less time, you know, in our ego. Okay, there's much less ego focus, and there's more room and more energy for focusing on others, and particularly on the well-being of others, which is compassion. So that's how compassion and humility go hand in hand. So we have a choice. We can shift our focus away from me, me, me. How do we do that? We do that with mindfulness. We, you know, have to pay attention. And when we notice that we're me, me, me stuff, which is actually a lot of the time, then we have the opportunity to shift it and think about others in terms of their well-being. So we can shift away from I, and iPhone. We can shift away from that me, me, me iPhone focus towards others. In fact, we can shift our focus towards all others. And here we have a smiling, happy human family. Of course, we're not always smiling. There's a tremendous amount of suffering and violence and discord that happens throughout the world, in families, in countries, and between countries. But ideally, we have this one happy family of everyone, and we can spend more of our time wishing, and when we can do something, to actually do something to improve the well-being of others. So all of us want to be happy, and none of us want to hurt. That is something that is like a mantra. It's true, and it goes for all living beings. We all want to be happy, even the ants. If you one day, when it gets warmer and you have some ants around your house, forming a line outside your door, and you disturb them a little with your finger, they kind of get frenetic. They're not happy. But if you put a little tiny piece of sugar, you don't want to do this near your door because you get the ants keep coming in your house. But somewhere else, you see some ants, put a little piece of sugar, and they'll be very happy. They'll take that, they'll work as a group, and they'll take those little tiny granules from if it's granulated sugar, and they'll take it back to their hive, so they can share it for all, for their queens, and share it for all. So you can see that even the ants just want to be happy, don't want to hurt. Certainly that's true with humans. So the more we remember this, the closer we become with others. So this is your homework. I want you to remember this phrase that just like me, she or he just wants to be happy and not hurt. I'll repeat that. So please remember this phrase, just like me, he or she just wants to be happy and not hurt. And I'd like you to remember that every time you meet somebody in person or virtual, anyway, you please remember, just like me, she or he just wants to be happy, doesn't want to hurt. And the more we do that, we'll begin to find that our relationship with that person, whatever it is, might be standing next to each other in a line, checking out from a store. Although now we'll be far apart, 6 feet, during COVID. But it may be someone that we know that we're interacting with on the phone, on Zoom or some other way digitally through, Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is that we're able to use now. And before we actually engage, when we just meet that person, I want you to remember, just like me, she or he just wants to be happy and not hurt. And our relationships with everyone will improve. And this is a wonderful way to live. That's your homework. And I don't want you just to practice that once. I want you to do that again and again and again, and try to make it a habit. Try to internalize it so that it automatically comes up every time you meet someone. You just think, just like me, she or he just wants to be happy and not hurt. And it helps make that a more positive relationship, whatever is going to happen in that relationship. And then we can actually start to thrive. We can flourish. So we feel like dancing. We feel like flying. That's what happens when we practice compassion. Compassion is a win-win situation. We feel good because we're helping someone else, or trying to help someone else, or have the aspiration to help someone else. And the other person, if we have reasonable, skillful means and pull it off in a reasonably good way, then they're going to feel well. They're going to feel cared for. They're going to feel helped in some way. So it's a win-win situation, compassion. Every man or woman must decide whether he or she will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s. Very beautiful, very beautiful. The fruit of faith is love, and the fruit of love is service. Saint Mother Teresa. Very, very beautiful. She devoted her life to others, and particularly to the poor, and particularly to the poor in India, and particularly to the poor in India who were homeless, living in the streets. She would often pick them up and then developed a whole group of sisters would go out and pick up the poor in the street that were suffering tremendously, often laying in their own excrement. And she was a little woman, only about 5 foot or not much above 5 feet tall. And they would carry them back to the Sisters of Charity. They would clean them, bathe them, clothe them, feed them, and give them love. Quite amazing. Now, some information has come out more recently in the last few years that would try to also proselytize Hindus to Christianity. Don't know, maybe there was some of that, it's possible, but she certainly bathed them in love and took them off of the street and gave them very comfortable, surrounding filled with lots of love toward her. Often they were, close to death, so they could die peacefully. And the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So this is a photo taken in 2011, in the fall of 2011. In that year, in fact, on March 11, 2011, is when Japan had that major, huge disaster, an earthquake measuring 9.4, 9.5 on the Richter scale, and these huge tsunamis that covered literally villages in the Northeast, and 20,000 people perished within minutes or hours. And a few months later, His Holiness the Dalai Lama visited that area of Northeast Japan and visited an area called, what's the name of that place? It's in Tohoku. Tohoku is kind of that area, that whole stretch of area with small village, often fishing villages in the northeast of Japan, and visited that area and gave a little talk at one of the temples that was completely destroyed. There were just a few stones and broken statues around by the tsunami. And when he was finishing that talk, he was walking out, and a young boy, a student in a student uniform, came up to His Holiness and hugged him, and His Holiness hugged back, and they hugged for the longest time. There were no words exchanged, and then His Holiness kept going. He was on his way, leaving that place to go to another place in Tohoku in northeast Japan to make prayers and to talk to the people about the disaster. We found out later that this boy had lost both his mother and his father in the tsunami. And somehow His Holiness seemed to know that because they hugged for the longest time. So this was a very powerful photo, and it occurred in a number of the Japanese major newspapers, and I think some of the international press also at that time in the fall of 2011. So moving beyond empathy to compassion is something very, very important. Empathy is a wonderful state of being, helping other people. Unfortunately, it can lead to problems in ourself because we can become enmeshed, too close, so that we take on the other person's suffering. We adopt it as our own. And if that builds up, then we can burn out and lead to depression and even self-harm. So compassion is strength and courage to fight injustice, not with hatred, but with love. So we can be very strong. Sometimes we think of compassion as being impotent, as weak, It's not. It can be very powerful and strong, and fighting injustice, like many of the compassionate people, like Dr. Martin Luther King and His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Nelson Mandela and Saint Mother Teresa, were deeply compassionate people, and they're very strong, full of courage. So you can see it's not weakness, compassion. In fact, the opposite. It takes tremendous courage and strength. It is strength and perspective. With compassion, we see more. It's tough love when it's needed, like a parent with a child that's acting out and not responding, to our peaceful means. We get firm. We don't hurt. We don't, physically hurt the child, but we get very firm. Sometimes with a very young child, we may hold it. And if it fights us, we may constrain it a little bit, at the same time telling the child we love the child. So empathy is a little different because we tend to own the other person's pain. It reduces, it shrinks our perspective. We're too caught up or enmeshed in the other person's pain. And that can lead to burnout when we own it as our own repeatedly, the other person's pain. So we want to move beyond empathy to compassion. Compassion has an element of cognition, this cognitive component, along with the emotion. It's almost as if we take a little half step back emotionally, so we're not right in the other person's face. The heart is still open, but we're not so close and enmeshed. It allows us more perspective on what's happening and thus better decision making on how we can help. And again, it avoids us from owning the other person's pain. And if we own the other person's pain and it builds up again and again and again and again, eventually it can lead to burnout and depression and even self-harm. So compassion allows us to be more effective in helping others. It also, as I've mentioned, protects us from burnout. Empathy fatigue is common due to taking on other person's pain again and again. Sometimes people talk about compassion fatigue. This is a misnomer. This is actually incorrect. When we practice compassion, we usually do not burn out or get tired or get fatigued. It comes with empathy. So the correct term is empathy fatigue. The predominant feeling when we're practicing empathy is sadness, because we're so close. It's almost as if it's our own pain, the other person's suffering. We take on the other person's suffering. It's almost our own. Whereas the predominant feeling of compassion is joy. It's feeling well because we're trying to help the other person. Although it is tinged with a little bit of sadness of the other person's suffering. So the predominant feeling in compassion is feeling well, although it's tinged with a little bit of sadness, feeling the other person's pain. Whereas empathy we can be overwhelmed with the other person's sadness, and that's all we feel. So I'd like to do a meditation on compassion with you. I'd like you to sit up straight with your spine straight, shoulders relaxed. And this time we'll go back to the first hand mudra of hand gestures that we did with the shamatha meditation, with your left palm up, the right palm on top, up, thumbs are in a triangle, and you relax all that in your lap, please. Again, let your shoulders relax. Head is up, not back, not front, forward, but straight up. Eyes are glancing down, open, trying not to stare. And this time mouth is closed. And what I'd like you to do, we're going to do 3 sections here of this meditation. The first will be with people, we'll be sending love and compassion. And the first will be the group of people that we are close to, we love, our relatives, the good relatives, our close friends. Second will be a group of strangers, people we don't know. And third will be those that we might call enemy or those we're uncomfortable being around. So first will be those we feel close to, second, strangers, third, those we feel uncomfortable with. And what we're going to do is from our heart chakra right here at the middle of our chest, we're going to radiate light in all directions, 360 degrees, okay? front, back, right, left, up, down. And that light is going to carry love and compassion and whatever people need. So if people are suffering now because of the COVID, maybe they're sick, or maybe they're frightened or worried, or they're grieving the loss of people they love or loved, send them anything and everything they need for their grieving, for their physical illness, for their fear, for their anxiety. If they're hurting in other ways, financially, send them resources. If their health in other ways from the COVID, or they're having health issues, send them good health. If they're having other mental disturbances like depression or thinking about or planning suicide, send them, good health to counter potential suicide or counter depression or schizophrenia or just being sad. So send them whatever they need on the beams of this light that's coming from the heart chakra, the center of your chest. And we'll spend a couple minutes first going out to those we feel close to, then I'll say number 2, and then we'll switch into the second mode of the sending out to strangers. And then I'll say 3, and we'll send it out to those we feel uncomfortable around. So please go ahead and meditate. Breathe normally with your mouth closed, eyes open, glancing down without staring, and send that light out from the middle of your chest with everything that people need who are hurting. First, now, to those you feel close to. Send them love. Everybody needs that. Number 2, please now send everything they need out to all the 7.8 billion strangers on the earth. You can send it out to the animals also. You can also send it out to those that have passed, that have died. So here you have to use your imagination because you don't know them. So imagine everybody in your, in your town in Hong Kong and then throughout, Asia, and then expand it that way. And now number 3, Please send out love and whatever they need, all those people and animals that are suffering that you feel uncomfortable being around. Make sure to include love in that, please. Please stop your meditation. And please, as you know, avoid the tendency to judge your meditation session or yourself as the meditator. Thank you. Unconditional love. So this is just pure love. It doesn't matter who or what is the recipient. So this adult bunny is using its ear to comfort and embrace a baby piglet. It's just love. You know, now we have a couple books. This is from 2018, No Fear, No Death, The Transformative Power of Compassion, all about compassion and the different elements of compassion. And several of these chapters are on your reading list. So I hope you enjoy it and it's meaningful for you. I'm the author and I take responsibility for any errors. This is a little more recent book, came out the year later, August of 2019. This book is called Nagarjuna's Wisdom, Practitioner's Guide to the Middle Way. It's pretty technical about Buddhist wisdom, and we've put on your reading list the introduction, and we've made some, we put that up on Moodle, so you should have seen it a while ago. And the introduction gives you a more overview of the Buddhist wisdom. And as you know very well, come and visit us on our social media platforms. The first is not social media, but is our nonprofit organization called Altruism in Medicine Institute. And that's the web address, altruismmedicine, double M, one word, .org. And then 3 times a week where I'm posting on Facebook a lot of the same kind of material that we've been presenting in these lectures, but of course in very short forms, just a paragraph each time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we have these other platforms. The last one there is hashtag AIMI Compassion, AMI, Altruism in Medicine Institute Compassion. And then another group, which is similar to a nonprofit group in Japan, that I'm the founder and chairperson for that, co-chairperson for that, is the website is Human Values with an S Institute.org, and that's the name of our group, Human Values Institute. And we have that website in Japanese, but some of it is translated into English also. Thank you very much. I have appreciated being with you in a way that's felt and is remote and virtual, but nevertheless, I've felt close to you. I've enjoyed our time with our office hours that we've done together on Zoom. And I look forward to being with you face to face a year from now for a continuation of these lectures at the Center for Buddhist Studies at the University of Hong Kong. Be well, be safe, and keep in touch.